change the computers of the Cummins. The next thing I'd like to dive into, get a little audacious here, is the suspension of the Ram Cummins. As you can see, it's a solid axle suspension. I painted mine all over and stuff. You guys have seen that time and time again, that I like to keep a good, very good condition of the Cummins, and well, both trucks really, Cummins and Silverado. But here is the difference that happened after the 13. The 13 actually changed the geometry of the suspension itself. In the beginning of that, people with 13, 14 models, they were really debating and having issues about suspension leveling kits and well, lift kits, but leveling kits especially, because that's just adds a spacer right here. Most people just add about $100 spacer on each side, put it right here, and don't really account for anything else. Maybe they'll get the shock extenders, but that's about it. They changed the suspension, and a lot of people are having problems with their suspension, saying that the coils were starting to sag, suspension was rotting really bad, and they were having a lot more problems opposed to the guys with the 10 to 12 with the old suspension geometry, complementing the use of a leveling kit a lot better. So with that being said, would I get a leveling kit for the Cummins? Now, I was thinking about it because it's only $100, and I think the Cummins would look good if it was just brought up a little bit higher, because you can see that the ground clearance of the Cummins itself is pretty low, especially with the lower plastic valence, but I've even thought about taking that off as well. I don't know if I want to go down the leveling path. I know it puts a lot of strain on your suspension components. It's not as good for the suspension itself, and I kind of learned my lesson with the Silverado, being that the ride quality isn't as good, being an oversized leveling kit pretty much, even though it's labeled as a suspension lift. But that also reminds me, another thing that people were having problems with the 13 and up Ram Cummins, or at least the Ram 2500, is the ball joints. People were going through ball joints a lot quicker running leveling kits on their truck opposed to the 10 to 12. The next thing that differs from the 10 to 12 Ram from the 13 to 17, obviously they're all 4th gen body style, so you gotta love that, but there is another difference, and a big difference actually, very visible as well, is that if you look under here, I am dumped right there. My exhaust ends right at that point. But here's the thing, on the 13 and up, you get the introduction of the DEF, which is the diesel exhaust fluid. So there'll be another big tank under here that you have to also fill by the gas cap, and you'll have to fill that in every so 1,000 miles. Now you may be saying, yes, I could just tune my truck, remove it like everything else, no problem at all, right? Well, no, there's actually another thing that you're gonna always be looking at in the inside of the truck. You can see on the inside of my Ram, it's pretty simple here with the gauges. Well, on the 13 and up, along with the redesign, we have a new gauge introduced right here in the 13 and up, and that is the DEF fluid. Now, along with the gas, obviously when it goes empty, you'll know, and it'll give you notification. It's just gonna be always empty. Now, some people get lucky, they can fill their tank and then delete, remove the tank, and then it'll always be stuck at full. Well, some people have even done that, and it still goes to empty. It's always gonna be that empty gauge. Obviously, if you guys don't mind seeing a useless gauge, well, then there's no problem at all, but I'm gonna say that's gonna be in there. Maybe if you can modify it to read boost EGTs, that'd be pretty cool, but I don't think I've seen anyone do that. So along with the change in suspension, that also means the change in the suspension technology. Now, usually every time that they change the suspension of any kind of truck, really, that means the aftermarket has to change their part designs. That means an up in price, because obviously they have to be paid to redesign and spend all that time and money and effort into developing a new kit, which then makes things more expensive. So yes, a 10 to 12 Ram Cummins is usually less expensive depending on the different features and the mileage, of course, than the 13 to 17 Ram. If you guys are thinking about getting one of these as your first truck, definitely do it. It's a good idea because it's been out longer. People all know and have their mistakes made, and people learn from mistakes. So they'll be sharing that on forums. There's a lot more parts available, and it's definitely a good route to take if you're new to Ram Cummins. So with that being said, this is not my first truck. This is actually my second truck. I've always wanted a Cummins. I always thought the Cummins was the best. I always thought it looked really cool. Here it is today. It's the 6.7 Ram Cummins. I always thought that that was the best Cummins engine. Of course, it's the redesign of the 5.9, so how can you go wrong there? They last a long time, very reliable and efficient, have a lot of power. That is exactly why I went with the Cummins, and I love the look of the 4th gen body style. Now, I'll admit, in the beginning of the year when I started actually looking for these trucks, I was actually looking for a 2nd gen.
Going with the thought process that leads us to
and Cummins. Then I would hear more and more stories about the fuel issues and the transmissions going out. And obviously Ram has never had good transmissions. People even say what I have in this truck now, the 68 FRE, which they did come out with the ACEN transmission later on, the 13, but that's 3500.
Inline 6 engine is paired with a 6-speed ACEN automatic transmission and kicks out 385 horsepower and 865 pound-feet of torque.
A lot of people say they did strengthen them up. I wouldn't say they're as good as the Allison, who knows, but I've read a lot of bad stories about the second gen transmission. The oldest you can get is 2002. The oldest 12 valve you can get is 98.5. So you're looking pretty old there in years. So to be able to get a truck in a good condition, not have rust or lower mileage, it's very rare, and you're actually going to be paying competitive prices of that as a third gen. Because people even consider now that the second gen Ram Cummins is a classic. If you guys are big diesel truck watchers on YouTube, you might remember of this one guy that made a video that some guy was trying to sell a second gen 12 valve. It had low mileage, I think it was 130,000. Spotless interior, exterior the same. Of course, it was in California, so there was no rust. Well, they actually wanted $29,000 for that, and I must say that you can get a fourth gen 6.7 for the same price. A lot of people say, well, let's go with the older trucks because they don't have the emission stuff. Well, of course, if you live in an area, you're lucky enough to be in a state where you don't have to get the stuff deleted, well, then I would definitely go with the newer one. You can go to your diesel shop, they'll hook you up with the equipment you need. I mean, I tuned my truck myself. Pretty pricey, but in the long run, you're gonna save a lot of money because cleaning the EGR is like $600. Getting the whole delete kit itself, $1,200. Over time, you're gonna send it.
I'm still gonna send it.
You're gonna save your money. Now, I do have some clips that I wanted to show you guys on the road of some cool truck. I just had to take a video with my phone, of which I did. I have an iPhone 7, so the quality is actually pretty good. There he is, Cummins driver, Cummins driver.
That's Josh. That's Josh.
Double down on this one, man. We got a truck just like mine, well, the GMC, but they blacked out the bumpers too on a black truck, and even though it's a black truck, it actually looks pretty cool. Now, one of these clips is actually from when I was on the biking trip. I actually stopped to take a break and saw this. So yeah, guys, I was one of those people that would come home every day from school in high school, play Call of Duty. I've always seen cool cars and trucks, and I've always been into them and stuff. I've always driven a Silverado for the longest time, and now I have a Ram Cummins. And for those who don't know, my name is Derek, 20 years old, got the Cummins here, building up both trucks. Definitely going to be getting a lift kit, tires, exhaust, definitely want to go down that route. The Silverado's built pretty well. I could definitely go with a lot of upgrades, especially with suspension. More content's coming out here soon. Check out my build progress if you want to see the Cummins from the start. So if you're watching this video, you're pretty cool. I do appreciate you guys watching. Don't forget to subscribe so I can see you next video. Make sure to leave a like on the video as well. Have a nice day.